And I think we'll get started. According to my computer, it's 1 o'clock. So thanks for joining us. This is Jen Cafferty from the Gluten Free Media Group, and I am very excited for our webinar today. We have Samir back from Kana Marketing to do our second webinar about Facebook. And doing the run-through the other day, it was really neat to see my own staff benefiting from these webinars as well. So I love that all of this is really applicable to all of us and even my own team. So Samir, welcome, and I'll let you just get going so we can dig in.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, everybody, for joining. It's nice to be back with you today. This is, as Jen mentioned, a follow-up to our last conversation back in May. So, for those of you that were online last week or last May, we'll cover a little bit of the same stuff, but then go into an actual demo of how to create a Facebook ad. And for those of you that were not here, I think you'll still gain quite a bit from this in terms of talking about Facebook advertising, the tools, and how everything works together.
And Samir, I'm going to jump in real quick here. If you have any questions along the way, please type them in the question panel, and then we'll get to all of the questions at the end for everybody.
Sounds good. Thank you. So from the standpoint of the agenda, we'll start with a short presentation that I have that will go through some of the basics, and we'll talk through some of the terminology, how Facebook advertising is structured, how it works, and then we will switch over to an actual demonstration where we will be in the Facebook advertising tools themselves. So before we jump in, just to tell you a little bit about me, my company is called Kana Marketing, and Kana stands for or means food in Hindi, and so my focus is primarily on emerging food brands and also restaurants, but I also have clients and expertise outside of the food arena. Most recently, I was at Smart Flower Foods, where I ran the marketing group and gained a lot of expertise. I've definitely been in your shoes as a brand, so I fully understand kind of what the challenges you go through, what it's like being an emerging brand, having a limited budget. And so my role tends to be playing your interim marketing department or your outsourced marketing department. So if you have a need for marketing capabilities and execution, but you don't have the ability to make a big budget in terms of a full-time team, that's where I can step in and help. And another differentiator about me is my finance background, which is oftentimes uncommon for a marketing person, but that is where I started my career, and it's beneficial because for a lot of companies, especially when you're starting out or when you're growing, it's important to show an ROI and have that focus on the financial performance piece of it and measurement, and that's something that I can bring to the table. So if any of that sounds interesting and you'd like to learn more, I would love to hear from you. So let's jump into the content here, and this is somewhat going back to what we talked about in May, but just to kind of refresh and get us back on the same page. What specific goals can a brand achieve on Facebook? And the way that Facebook has created their tools, it's designed to mirror the marketing funnel. So in theory, with Facebook advertising, you could discover a new customer that had never heard about your brand before, give them the tools and capabilities to understand and interact with your brand. So that might be going to your website, that might be doing searches in the product locator, that might be watching a video so they can understand a little bit more about your brand and about your company. Those are all what we consider to be in the consideration stage. And then finally, we can actually take that user all the way to a purchase or some type of commerce-related event. And so the kind of the caveat there is that if your brand is shelf stable and you're able to sell online, through your own website or through Amazon or Jet.com or any of these other e-commerce applications, then you can actually drive to sales, and you can even set up Facebook ads in a way that it will tell you the exact amount of purchases that have come through with your ads. So it becomes a very powerful ROI-based tool. Now, if your product is frozen or for some other reason you can't sell it online, then you have to use product locator searches or coupon downloads as a way to measure your conversions. All right, so let's jump into an overview here. The first thing is to talk about boosted posts versus ads. Both are important. Boosted posts typically take the role of providing newsworthy events. Excuse me one moment. So let's say your brand got into a new store, then that would be something you would want to have as a boosted post. You'd also want that post to show up at the top of your Facebook feed so that anyone that goes to your page will see that information. Now, ads will drive to a variety of objectives, such as awareness, consideration, or conversion, kind of what we just talked about. Awareness would be getting people to like your page, reaching them with advertising. Consideration would be actually driving traffic to your page. App installations, I don't know too many brands that have apps, but if you do, that's definitely an option. And then engagement, that can be going to your website, reviewing materials, watching a video, etc. Now, some common applications for ads would include driving people to purchase your product and then download a coupon. So we've talked a little bit about that, but it's hard sometimes if your product is not sold online to actually show conversions, but this is also, it's still something that can be valuable. Now, this little blurb on the side, Facebook ads can automatically show up on Instagram. That's a very important integration point for Facebook since they've acquired Instagram. And the reason that it's important is because Instagram and pictures and photos are becoming a very important platform, and you'll see that a lot of brands have greater engagement on Instagram than they do on Facebook. So that's definitely a place that you want to be reaching your customers. Now, the key point about this slide, I think that's important, is just to keep in mind, you want to have boosted posts and you want to have ads both as a part of your strategy. Boosted posts are going to matter when you want people to know that your product got into a store, and you want that to be present on your page anytime anybody visits it. And then your ads are going to be specifically reaching customers that you may not have today with targeted information, trying to drive them to actually do something. So that's kind of the other piece I guess I should mention is that an ad will not show up in your newsfeed or on your page, but a boosted post will. So again, if you have a piece of news, like a new product expansion or potentially a new store acquisition, like you just got into Sprouts or you just got into a particular region with Whole Foods, then you want to make sure that that shows up on your feed for a couple of weeks. And you can accomplish that by doing the pin to top on the newsfeed. Now let's talk a little bit about content. Content can be a difficult issue for growing brands just because we don't always have a huge budget, so we can't always spend money creating fancy videos. We can't have new product photography all the time. And that's okay, because for two reasons. One, there are some scrappy ways to get around that and to create good content for your page just with the things that you're doing every day. So a good example is if you go to a GFAF show and customers are coming to your booth and they're trying your product for the first time, if you get them to take a taste and they have a great reaction, you want to take a video of that you have to ask them and get their permission if you can to use that information again or use it on social media. But generally speaking, most customers in my experience have been pretty comfortable with letting us use information that way, or letting us use their testimonial that way. So make sure every time you go to a trade show of any kind or any time a demo, when you're interacting with customers, make sure you record a video. Now, with regards to images, this can be a very frustrating problem, but Facebook will not allow ads that contain more than 20% of text in the image. So you will have your ads getting disapproved for reasons that seem like they don't make sense, because the image doesn't seem like it has that much text, but it keeps pushing back. Some ways you can work around that is, let's say you're trying to show a picture of your product package. Very important image. You want customers to see it. You want them to have that association, so when they go to the grocery store, they recognize it and they're more likely to make a purchase. But the product package typically will have a lot of words on it, and because of those words, Facebook may deny the image. So the way to work around that is just to take a picture of your product outside of the package next to your product package, and so now you're balancing out that text a little bit. The other thing is, whenever you're doing food photography, so if you're having professional pictures taken of your product, save some time at the end of the day just to take some social media ready posts, so or pictures. So you're taking some that may not necessarily be suitable for the packaging, but you just want to have them additionally so that you can use them with your social media posts. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that consumers in general are turning away from imagery that looks too professional or too authentic. Looks too professional and inauthentic. So it's okay if you're taking some of your pictures with a camera phone, or if they're from a live event, or they don't look perfect. You don't need perfect imagery. You just want something that's clear and demonstrates the product pretty well. Now, this third point here is with regards to videos. Generally speaking, there is a capability in Facebook called slideshows, and the ad we're going to create will actually be a slideshow ad, so I can demonstrate that. But slideshow ads will take a couple of static images that you may have and put them in a loop, and it'll allow you to add music and or a caption at the bottom. So if people don't have their sound on, or if there isn't sound that goes with the slideshow, you can actually have some verbiage that's scrolling at the bottom. This is free. It's a part of the Facebook ad tools. And what it does is give you the ability to create an ad hoc little video about your product. Now, without belaboring video too much, but going into it just a little bit more, the one thing that I think is important for every brand to have is what I call the brand overview video. So the brand overview video is typically something that is a minute to a minute and a half. It can be longer for YouTube. You can take a longer one and scale it back. But usually it's the founder and some of the employees and then customers just talking about the brand and the product. It's really important because the market research indicates that millennials especially, but all consumers in general, want to have a strong resonance with the brand that they are purchasing. It's not just about having a great product or the right ingredient deck. It's about connecting with that person, that company, feeling a part of the team, feeling a part of the mission. So a video of that type can humanize your brand and create a story with it that you can reuse. And it has a ton of applications beyond social media. You can use it as a part of your sales process. You can use it with buyers and other meetings. And so I think it's a good thing to have. That's something that might require a little bit more professional work. But if you're interested in that, we can talk offline and I can give you some tips on how to do that relatively cost effectively. Audiences are a big part of the value of Facebook advertising. Moving on to the second point here. As we mentioned last time on the call, Facebook offers first of all, everyone in America pretty much is on Facebook. And all those people have indicated a ton of information about everything from their age and where they live and their income status to what brands they like, what brands they don't like. So all of that information is allowable for you to go through and mine and target your advertising to. So an example for us might be, let's say that we want to target moms because we think that moms are the people that are making key product purchasing decisions. They're above a certain income level. They reside in a certain geographic area, and they're interested in organic foods, but they also have expressed an interest in Sprouts and Trader Joe's. Now, that's kind of like a little profile of a potential customer there, and you can create and store these audiences in Facebook and reuse them whenever you want, so you don't have to recreate them every time. But the important thing to point out, kind of a key takeaway when it comes to Facebook advertising, and this isn't just what I would tell you, Facebook's team would tell you the same thing, you want to do this on kind of a trial and error, iterative process. So you have an audience that you select, you run a set of ads, test it with them, see how they react and engage with that ad. And if they engage with that ad positively, then you may continue. Or if they're engaging with a video more than an image, or a certain audience is doing better than another, you want to do that for a while until you sense what that approach is going to be, and then commit to the strategy. So start slow, iterate, figure out what works, and then start targeting heavily when you start to see what's working. And if you have the ability to sell online and you've got everything set up correctly and you know what your ROI is on your purchasing ads, then you can feel comfortable committing ad budget to that platform. This last point here is just that ads will generate comments and questions just like a post, just like anything else you do in social media. So make sure you apply the same responsiveness metrics or commitment that you would on any other social media. I generally tell brands to focus on four business hours to respond to customer inquiry. And so if somebody reaches out to you at 8, you want to make sure by noon you've gotten them an answer. But in reality, if you've got someone in your office that's focused on social media and they've got the ability to keep social media open on their screen while they're doing other work, oftentimes they can respond even more frequently. And the better you respond and the quicker you respond, Facebook's algorithm will reward you with better presentation, higher metrics on your posts. And when it comes to the boosted post that we talked about before, generally speaking, if you post something, only 1 to 2% of your audience is going to see it. And that's why boosting becomes important, putting dollars behind it, because that's what will allow others, a much wider audience, even people that don't associate with your page today, can see that piece of advertising or that piece of news in their newsfeed. Now, I have heard that if you produce really compelling content on a regular basis and you have high engagement, then Facebook will reward you and your posts will be seen by more people. But generally speaking, that is not easy to achieve. So now let's look at the Facebook ad structure. Campaigns are the first level, ad sets are the second level, and then the ads themselves are the third level. And this is important because when you go into the tools, you're going to see it organized exactly this way. Your campaign is your highest level, and it's going to be your specific objective. So you might have one campaign that's focused on traffic, and you might have one campaign that's focused on conversions or sales, let's call it. Traffic may just be getting people to your website to learn about your brand. So if that is the first level, you want to make sure that the campaign is focused on one goal and one goal only. Beneath that are the ad sets, which are a combination of audience and budget. And what that basically means is the audience, like we described before, so a group of people and with certain parameters, and then however much you want to spend on that particular ad set. It could be $10 a day, it could be $100 over 2 weeks, whatever that setup might be. That's how that works. And then the ads themselves are the specific creative that's going out. So within one ad set, you might have an ad that is a static image, you might have an ad that's a video, you might have an ad that's a slideshow, and your goal is that you're testing those three to see which one works the best. You don't have to have multiple ads underneath an ad set, but the point is you can, and you can use that to test which one is working the best. And then, so the point here is that one campaign can have multiple ad sets, and then each ad set can have multiple ads underneath it. Now let's talk a little bit about the Facebook ad tools themselves. First is the Ads Manager. This is the simplest tool. Generally speaking, if you're one brand with one page, this is the tool that you want to use. It will accommodate 80 to 90% of whatever you're trying to accomplish. It does not allow for drafting ads that you can go live with later. Power Editor is a step up. It's a little bit better, but it's going to be a little bit more complicated to use. Business Manager is if you have an ad agency or other multiple account scenarios, which is typically not common, excuse me, and it's usually reserved for large organizations. Now, the key point in all of this is that Facebook's tools are not intuitive or easy to use. It's part of why we have to have such a long conversation about it, just because it's not particularly easy to work with. But we'll try to keep it as simple as we possibly can. So let's talk about an example campaign. For the purposes of this demo, I have created a company called Sam's Gluten-Free Pretzels, and their product is shelf stable, so it can be sold online. Our campaign objective will be to drive traffic. Even though it says online sales here, I'll explain why we can't actually show a demonstration of conversion in just a second. Now, the ad sets, we're not going to create all of these on the demo itself, but we can create at least one, which is gluten-free moms, ages 35 to 55. And the reason I picked those ages is just to illustrate a scenario in which you're targeting a certain age group. Now, if you are targeting gluten-free as one group, you may choose to target moms who are not gluten-free, but have instead expressed interest in health foods. So let's say you're trying to test those two audiences against each other. And then you may be also looking to see how your product and message resonates with single professional women without kids that are also interested in health foods. That's also very easy to set up within Facebook. And then let's say you have men. Let's say your product typically is not purchased by men, but you want to see if maybe you can grow engagement in that area. With pretzels or pizza, there may be a different set of messaging also. At Smart Flower with frozen pizza, we had one kind of use case that was mom. She's busy. She needs to put dinner on the table on a particularly busy evening, but she doesn't. While she needs it to be quick and fast and convenient, she cannot have it be too unhealthy ingredients that are too gross, for lack of a better term. So that was one. On the other hand, with men, we would target potentially around sporting events or the fact that they're going to eat pizza anyway, but here's a little bit of a better, healthier option. So you can see that your ad creative and messaging may vary based on the audience that you're targeting. So that's something else to consider. And then we'll look at video ads, but we'll create a slideshow ad as a part of our campaign. So with that said, let's move over to the demo portion of the review. Now, the first thing that you have to do is access Ads Manager to create an ad. And the easiest way to generally do that is if you just go down here in your Facebook page, your home page, you will see Ads Manager, and you just click on that. It'll usually say that you're loading Ads Manager. And I have nothing set up in this account right now. That was to just replicate a scenario in which you might be starting out if you haven't done any ads up to now. So as we looked at on the slide, you can see that we have campaigns, ad sets, and ads, just like we did in the presentation. Now, account overview, this little tab, will show you a summary level reporting on the ads that you've run. But since I haven't run any ads so far, it doesn't show me anything. So let's jump into creating a campaign. Create ad. Now, as we go through this, we're going to see, sorry, I was testing this earlier. We'll start over. You're going to see that this left-hand navigation is going to walk you through what you're doing. And as you complete each step, it'll give you a little check mark. Now we're back to objectives, what we talked about earlier. We have awareness, we have consideration, and we have conversion. If you hover over these, it's going to tell you what each one will do. Increase awareness for your brand by reaching people who are more likely to be interested in it. I typically haven't found these ads to be that compelling, but you can run them if you like. And then reach will also give you the opportunity to reach people that haven't seen your brand, and it'll show it to a maximum number of people. In reality, these two don't accomplish that much more than what can be done in consideration. So I haven't spent a lot of time using these. And I would recommend the same in your case, especially if you're starting out. Because from my standpoint, what better way to drive awareness of the brand than getting them to your website versus just showing them an ad that lives in Facebook? Now, one thing I wanted to talk about is that last time we discussed the issue of buying likes, and I've been talking to quite a few Facebook experts in the last couple of months, and what I have come to realize is that buying likes can work if they're relevant likes, as we discussed before. You want to stay completely away from buying likes that are in foreign countries or that just pad your statistics, because customers will see through it, Facebook will penalize you for it, and the organic reach of 1 or 2% that you could reach will even go down further. Now, let's say you're getting ready for a big meeting with Target or Publix, and let's say you want to build up a little bit of an audience so that when Target or Publix visits your Facebook page, they're able to see a high number or a decent number of fans. That is something that happens, and that's something to be sensitive to. In those types of scenarios, I think buying likes is a good idea just to build up that critical mass, whether in your mind that number is 5,000, 7,500, 10,000, whatever the number is. If you want to get to that critical mass, make sure you're buying likes from a relevant pool of people, so people that would be interested in your product. Now, there's another school of thought that says rather than buying likes, you can achieve more likes just by doing a good job with ads here and with boosted posts. So I think that's true, but I think that advice skews a little bit towards bigger brands. I think smaller brands, especially when they're starting out, are just under a bit of pressure to start showing traction quickly. And so I still think that buying likes plays a role, but I wanted to bring that up just because it sounds like there's a different school of thought emerging, and it sounds like even Facebook has started to encourage more use of these types of ads and less use of the like purchasing ads. So let's say that for this campaign example, we want to create a traffic ad. And so what traffic means is it's very simply said here, we are sending people to a destination either on or off Facebook, but generally speaking, it means off Facebook. Now, that off Facebook could be a website, it could be an app. Generally speaking, I don't know too many brands in our space that have a brand-specific app, so you can generally ignore that piece of it. Now, this little button here is new, and you can generally ignore it. It's Create Split Test, and this kind of gets into a little bit more detail than we probably have time for today, but Facebook has the ability to take two ads and test them against two different audiences and tell you exactly which one did better. Sounds great, but in reality, when you are running your own test without clicking this button, when you're running multiple ads against each other, Facebook is automatically optimizing them. And so automatically optimizing means the ads that are performing better are going to show up more. So you want to take advantage of that feature unless you're just really into data and really want to manage this whole process on your own. I don't recommend using the split test. Now, real quickly, the conversion aspect here, the reason that we're not going to create a conversion ad, even though that's the most powerful ad on Facebook, is because we would need to have something called a tracking pixel set up. And the tracking pixel is a little piece of code that you embed into your website so that anytime someone goes from Facebook to your website, they know you get, it retains that information and you can be made aware of that. They've made these tracking pixels pretty sophisticated. They've reached a point where we can, it can even tell you when they've made a purchase, and if you assign a value, like an estimated value to a purchase, it'll tell you that for spending $100 in ads, you generated $500 in sales. So very powerful, but we'd have to set up a tracking pixel. Don't have the time or the capability to do that now, but that is something that I can help you with if you're interested in looking at doing that. Product catalog sales, Facebook has now the ability to even do a little product catalog and a little shopping capability within your Facebook page. So that's something else that's probably out of the scope of this call, but something worth looking into. Store visits, this is something that looks great. Unfortunately, you would have to have multiple stores of your own. We can't set this up for multiple Whole Foods or retailers that are third parties that we're sold through. So we clicked on traffic. We're going to create a traffic ad. The campaign name, it usually just defaults to traffic. I like to make it something a little bit more specific. So let's call this Traffic Ad 1 Mid-August 2017. So now you can see it checked off objective. We've completed our little campaign objective. Now, as we go through creating this audience, I want you to pay a little bit of attention on the right-hand side to this audience size box. What this is going to tell you is what the potential reach and estimated reach of your ad will be. Right now, since we haven't selected any kind of parameters or narrowed the audience at all, it's at 223 million. Let's start off by naming this ad set. Let's call it Gluten-Free Moms, age 35 to 55, and those ages are just based on demographic profiling you may have done. It can be broader. You can do messaging that's even more targeted and narrow that range. I just picked that as kind of a rough example of a demographic. And then let's say we're going to spend $10 a day on these ads, and we want to reflect that in the name of the ad set. Here it asks you, where do you want to drive that traffic? And in this case, you want to drive to a website, which will be your website. Now, this little box, offer, is interesting. It's something that is worthwhile to do if you want to, let's say, create a discount code, or create, if you have the ability to sell product in your own store or a small store where you have a relationship that they'll honor a Facebook offer. That's something that makes it even more tangible. So if you create an offer, which I'm not going to for this example, but if you create one, It gives the user the opportunity to get a discount, a buy one, get one free, some kind of incentive to help them make that product purchase. Now, here, as I mentioned, you can save audiences. So if you have audiences from prior campaigns that you saved, you can reuse them. In this example, we'll be creating an audience for the first time, so we're under Create New. Now, everyone in this location is your first kind of box here, and we're about to select the location, but it's important to go through these steps. So you could talk to people who live in this location, people who were recently in that location but may not be anymore, and people traveling in this location. Generally speaking, I go with everyone in this location, but what is interesting about something like traveling, there was a point in time when a brand I talked to had a snack that had just gotten into the airport, like the Hudson News or some of the kiosks in the airport. So they did an ad where they targeted people traveling in this location, and the location they set was a certain proximity of the airport. So when people were in the airport, if they happened to look at Facebook, they might see that ad. So that's something that is just an idea of how you can use these different selections. So let's say for our purposes that we just got into a store like Sprouts, which is on the West Coast. So we want to target our ads to people in California, Arizona, and Nevada. So you can see here now it's got those 3 states selected. Our age was 35 to 55. I'm going to select women, but when I go into the demographics, I'm going to select moms. So it would default anyway, but I go ahead and select women. Languages, if you're interested in targeting people that may be speakers of another language like Spanish, this could be relevant. I don't ever feel the need to put anything in the language criteria. Now, detailed targeting. This is where the power and the interesting nature of Facebook is illustrated. So this is where you get to pick all the different interests and likes, preferences that your audience has. So the first we're going to select is gluten-free. And you'll see that there are several gluten-free interests, quite a few actually. So let's say we pick gluten-free diet. Udi's gluten-free happens to be an audience, and I usually pick it because it's been around, the brand has been around so long and so many gluten-free eaters identify with it that it usually can't hurt to select it. But you'll see that the reach did not change from 940,000 to start with to adding Udis, which means that all of the people that like Udis are already reflected in this gluten-free diet interest. Now, we also wanted moms, so we need to select moms. And it gives you a whole slew of options relative to moms. Dance moms, green moms, fit moms, new moms. What I typically do is just select moms. If it'll let you, it used to, sometimes it doesn't. So then I would just go through and select as many of these as I thought were relevant to my set. And in the interest of time, I won't go through and select too many, but you can do that. I also believe that in demographics, you can say children. Parents with adult children, parents with early school age children. That's another way to isolate moms if you wanted to do it that way. Now, you can exclude certain people or you can narrow the audience. So in this case, let's say I want to narrow the audience a little bit to, and actually I made a mistake here. We don't want to include moms up here because that would be an either or. So you'd get moms or gluten-free. We want moms and gluten-free. So we want to say they're gluten-free, but they're also moms. So we select soccer moms. Now we could, if we were doing this for real, we'd select several other mom choices, but in this case we selected soccer moms, and now our reach has gone down to 280,000 people. That's still quite significant. even though it's smaller than 940, I still think it's a quite a large audience to target. Now, you could even narrow this further, and let's say that we wanted to only include people that have expressed an interest in Sprouts because we just got into that store. So then we select interest Sprouts Farmers Market. Now, the connection type, this is a little bit important. But just to recap here, so we've selected our audience. We've got these 3 states, this age, women, interested in gluten-free, and their moms. We only have soccer moms, but we'd have the full list if we were doing this for real. And it is kind of a pain. That's why you want to save an audience when you create it so you don't have to do all this work again. Then the connection type. So you can ignore apps or events unless you're promoting a particular event. But when it comes to Facebook pages, people who like your page, friends of people who like your page, or excluding people who like your page. And that last one is kind of important because if you're excluding the people who like your page, now you're going after people that don't know anything about you. So let's click that for sure. And let's save this audience. So I don't know why it defaults it to my name, but let's call it gluten-free moms who like Sprouts. Now, the last piece of our ad set here is going to be our budget, and we said $10 a day, so we're going to do 10. You'll see that now it'll tell you based on $10 a day how many people you're expected to reach and how many clicks you're expected to get per day. These options, do you want to run it continuously, start or end date? I usually put a start and end date. There are people who say this can affect how your ad shows up, but I don't think there's anything wrong with having an end date. And let's say since we're just starting, we just want to run it for a week. So now it tells you that your ad will run for 7 days and you're not expected to spend more than $70. Optimization, generally go for link clicks. That just means that Facebook is going to present the ad in a way that generates the most clicks as possible. Bid amount, I usually keep that at automatic. That's just Facebook's way of determining how much they're going to charge you per click, and that depends on how many people are bidding for that same audience at that time. Now, you can be charged when the ad is presented, which is impressions, or when the ad is clicked. So, but in order to be able to do the click feature, you have to have spent $10 in this account, which I haven't yet. All right, so we're all good there, and then we hit continue. And now we're actually going to create the ad, the actual ad creative. You can see that all of our little ad set check marks are clicked. With regards to pages, I manage several pages, so I'm going to pick the gluten-free pretzels, which is the one that's relevant for our example here. Now you also have the ability to link an Instagram account, so I highly recommend you do if you have an Instagram account, and by the way, if you don't, you should. But if you don't for some reason, then it'll still show your ad on Instagram. It'll just have the name of your Facebook page, and it'll still display. Now, we can make a carousel of images. We can do a single image. We can do a video ad. We can do a slideshow. I'd like to demonstrate the slideshow because I think it's relatively powerful. One thing we didn't mention in the presentation was Canvas. This is a new feature, relatively new feature in Facebook, and it's something I encourage you to look at. When someone clicks on a Canvas ad, it takes over their whole phone or tablet or PC screen with photos, videos, and other imagery for the brand. So it can be powerful. I haven't seen a lot of stats or information on how well it's being received, but it definitely looks interesting. And if you Google Facebook Canvas, they've got some pretty cool demo videos you can look at to see how that works. So now to create our slideshow, we have to add images to it. So let's add photos. So I added 3 pretzel images that I have. You can decide how you want it to be presented. Let's leave it at original. How long each image shows up, let's say 2 seconds. We'll do a little fade transition. and you can see what this will look like. So this is the actual ad that people will see in their feed. Facebook has the ability to let you add music. They've got these free little music songs you can add, or you can add your own, provided you have the licensing rights to show the music. So once we click this Create Slideshow, it's going to create that for us. It generally doesn't take 2 minutes, by the way, but it can take a little bit longer than 30 seconds to create. While that's doing that, I'll pause. If there are any questions, or Jen, if there's anything on the poll that you want to ask, or
sorry,
no? Okay.
I forgot to unmute myself. We had one question so far, and please, if you have questions, just type them in. We'll get to them. But somebody asked, where do you actually find the comments to respond to when you're running an ad? Is that in the Ad Manager or on your Facebook page?
That's a great.
Show up?
That's a great question. Typically, you would go to your notifications when someone comments on your ad. If you have Pages Manager, which is an app that you download for your phone or tablet, there's a place you can do it there. But generally speaking, there's not an easy, you can do it when you're in Ads Manager. You can click on Ad Preview, and it'll show you what the ad will look like. And it's weird, but sometimes the comments show up there, and sometimes they don't. So generally speaking, just keep an eye on your notifications. And once you have one comment and you respond to it, copy the URL of that ad and save the URL, and then you can go back and monitor it. But that's a great question. And once again, it's not intuitive.
Okay, that's great. And then if anyone was curious, our last poll about how many ads has your company run, 50% of you said you've done more than 10 ads. And we had 13% both at 1 to 4 ads and 5 to 10 ads. I'll pop up another poll question in a few minutes, though.
Okay, that sounds great. Now, as I mentioned, the slideshow gives you the ability to add captions, which I recommend because just showing images, even if they were product images, product packaging images, don't tell your story. So you want to have a little bit of captions running at the bottom. So it'll bring up Caption Editor, and you can enter these in here. So it asks you to review them, accuracy, et cetera, but you can kind of play the video and then see at what point you want to add your captions. I'll cancel that for now. Okay, so now your ad is almost ready. You want to enter in the destination URL, and I'm going to just put Kana Marketing because I don't have a website for the fake pretzel company. You can preview the URL if you'd like. Now, it's going to give you this headline and text that it's going to pull from your website, but Shipley going to change that. And in typical Facebook fashion, the headline is actually down here, and the text is actually up here. So the headline I'm going to call Great Tasting Gluten-Free Pretzels. And then for the text at the top, I'm going to call it Looking for a New Gluten-Free Snack Option. Now, your call to action button, is it to learn more? Is it to shop now? Is it to download something? Usually it's going to be learn more, shop now, or sign up if you're getting them to sign up for something. And then in your newsfeed link description, this will go underneath here. So I'm just going to say, @extraordinary. All right, now you can go through here and see how your ad is going to show up on various platforms. Obviously, the desktop version is going to show more text than the mobile version. but you want to go through and see these. Now, I would say that you want to avoid some of these, like feature phone, instant articles, and audience network banner. You don't want your ads placed there. They're not going to do anything. And where you would make that choice is back here in the ad set under placements. So I would make sure and just focus on the mobile, the desktop, and the Instagram. Those are the three that are going to deliver the most bang for the buck. Now, if you want a display link, you can add that. That's just a link to another way to link to your page. And then this last step here is where it asks for tracking pixels, and whether or not you have that set up will determine whether or not you can take advantage of that capability. So I'm not going to make this ad go live since it's an example, but this is where you would click confirm and the ad would then go live. And as I mentioned before, Ads Manager won't allow you to draft ads. What it will do is sometimes if you leave this page and you come back to it, it'll ask you if you want to start back where you left off. We saw that when I came onto this page. I don't recommend trusting that. If you're using Ads Manager, don't go through this exercise unless you're ready to launch the ad. On the other hand, you can use Power Editor, which we don't have time to go through today, but I can work with you afterwards to show you how to use Power Editor, where you can actually draft campaigns and then have them go live whenever you are ready. So that is basically concludes the demonstration that I wanted to go through. I think we've got a few minutes, so I did want to open it up for any questions. I know we've covered a fair amount of material, but if there are any questions. And I also wanted to make you aware that there are a few other topics that we didn't get a chance to talk about that I think are important. We hit on tracking pixels just a little bit, but I think it would be important to really maximize these ads, to be able to understand how tracking pixels work. They're not terribly complicated, but there are nuances there. And once you have pixels in place, you can do retargeting. So if someone visits your website and they didn't buy anything or they didn't download the coupon like you wanted them to, you can have ads show up again on their website and other places to retarget them and make sure that your brand is staying top of mind. Discount codes and offers, there's a whole strategy around how to do this. If you want people to go to your Amazon page or your website to make a purchase, do you want to offer discount codes, how to do that, timing, amounts, how to measure the success, and all that kind of falls into the bucket of e-commerce strategy. So we haven't had an opportunity to dig into that, but that's definitely something I think that would be important for a follow-on conversation.
Great, thanks, Samir. We have a couple questions, and just for those of you that voted on the recent poll, 81% of you are very likely to be running Facebook ads, so that's kind of neat to see. So the first question I have is, what is the best campaign to run if the call to action is to go to a grocery store, assuming that you can't actually link to the grocery store locations?
Good question. So I would do a couple of things. I would have a coupon, digital coupon stored somewhere, and I would drive. What I did at Smart Flower, and I think it made a lot of sense, is I would, because it was a frozen product, I couldn't do online sales, so I would drive traffic to the product locator page on our website, and after about 10 or 15 seconds of the user being on that page, a download coupon pop-up would pop up. And so that's a good way. Now, the other thing you can do is have an ad that comes up when the person is in a certain geography. So that goes back to the drop-down we looked at that said, do I live in this location? Am I traveling into this location? Etc. So you can have ads show up at certain times. So you could say, have the ad come on Saturday morning for the people that are in this zip code, which is in proximity of the store, and then mention the store in the ad and say, did you know that Samir's gluten-free pretzels are in Sprouts? And have that show up when they're in the vicinity of that Sprouts. So it's that type of thing that I think can work. There is an ability to set up locations in Facebook and then have people targeted when they're in a proximity of that location, but I'm not sure if you can add locations that you don't own. So I don't know that you could add Whole Foods locations into your profile, but that's definitely something worth looking into, because if you could, then that's another way that you could target them.
Okay, I've got another question here, but I've got to read two at once. Can you go over the part that says exclude the Facebook friends, and what does that mean? And then with that, she thinks it's the connections under the ad set, and which of these are really best to use?
So the excluding from, let me see if I can get back to it over here. The connections and that aspect of it is, do you want to reach people that are already connected to you, or do you want to reach people that are new to your brand? So that's where this, I'm trying to find exactly where it was, but that's where that piece of it came in, and I think it's in the audience section, but it'll ask you connection type. And so people who like your page are people that are already familiar with it and are already your friend. So if you've got a campaign for repeat purchasing, that's where you want to go. Friends of people who like your page might be the thought process that people that like your page and their friends are more likely to also like your brand. Excluding people who like your page are relevant when you are looking to go after that new audience member, someone that doesn't know anything about your brand. You're targeting them for the first time, and that's where that piece comes in. So that's how those three work. And then what was the second part, Jen?
Under audience, she thinks it's under audience. Some clarification under connections, under the ad set section in there.
So I think connection type is just what we went through. Was that it, or?
Michelle, did we actually answer your question or no? I can only see your questions here. She's thinking it's in the audience section and then under ad set, under connections, and then under ad set. I'm not sure if that's what we just did.
Yeah, this is definitely in the ad set section, and we're in audience, and that's the one place where connection is. So I'm hoping we've answered it.
Oh, yeah, she said we answered it. Thank you.
Okay, good deal.
All right, that's great. If anybody else has any other questions, pop them in there real fast. I'll keep watching that. And then Samir, I would love to set up another webinar for everybody going over, again, the e-commerce strategies as well as Power Editor, tracking pixels, those kinds of things, maybe a few more every couple of months. It seems like we have a core group of people here that really are interested in Facebook and how to use it. And you have a good command of how to use it, but also it's very easy to understand. And for me,
absolutely, and I
need easy to understand.
I totally understand, and I had a client, or have a client, that's going live with an e-commerce capability just today or tomorrow, and I was earlier this morning digging into lots of details around tracking pixels, adapting the code. It's complicated, but they've tried to make it easy, and if your website is on Shopify or BigCommerce or some of those, then it's even easier to embed the pixel, but the tracking pixel makes all the difference night and day between how effective your ads will be and whether that ROI is calculated. So big fan of that. Before we concluded, I did want to put this slide up. I thought it would be a good idea to offer a follow-up special. So if anyone is interested in digging deeper into Facebook and would like some one-on-one time with me, we can set up the tracking pixel. We can go through Power Editor in detail. I can set all that up in your environment, get you up and running on a couple of ads, and then we can track and measure those afterwards. If you reach out to me this week, we can get that scheduled, and doing that for a special rate of $750 for that entire set of activities, which would probably take about, run the course of about a month. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
That's great. Thank you. All right, well, if anybody has other questions, let us know. You can shoot us an email, and I will get them to Samir or reach out to him directly. And, as always, my whole team is here, so if you need anything, please reach out. We have a few more expos through the end of the year. I think we just have New Jersey, Secaucus, Dallas, Texas, and we added back in San Mateo at the end of the year, so that San Francisco area, which is really exciting. And then next year, if you didn't see, we did add Denver in the spring, so we're very, very excited about that. And as always, you know, our e-blasts are going crazy. So if you're a brand that's trying to reach more customers, the e-blasts are doing very well. And then my only last bit of information is we ran a 10-year landmark survey recently. We're about to close it in a few days, and we cannot believe how many people responded to this. When I look at the Mintel numbers that come out, it's always 2,000 people, 3,000 people. We have over, I think last time I checked the other day, we had over 16,000 people answer all of these questions. So we're going to have some amazing information to share with everybody about what's really going on in the gluten-free world. So I'm hoping once we pull that together that I can actually do a webinar for you and get you all that information. So thank you again. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.